save lives. I'm a proud co-sponsor of many pieces of legislation introduced by several members who are standing beside me, including taxing e-cigarettes, investing in youth prevention programming, and strengthening our medical response to this crisis. But we must ban flavors in a comprehensive manner. We must increase resources in youth e-cigarette prevention programs. Those are musts, and those are things that we are all going to campaign for. Finally, we must also hold companies accountable for marketing legally sound products that are safe and approved by the FDA. And we must ensure that no tobacco or e-cigarette manufacturers profit on the backs of our children. Our children are not for sale. Thank you so much for being here. I'll introduce each of the following speakers before they speak. But first, I'd like to introduce my Caucus co-founder, Congressman Peter King. Peter?
Thank you. Thank you, Raj. Thank you very much, Raj, and thank you for your leadership in getting this going. You and Senator Durbin, I give you great credit for this, because this is not a political issue, it's not a partisan issue, it's not an economic issue. This is first and foremost, it's a public health epidemic issue. We have to stop this epidemic of youth vaping. And with all the various methods and procedures we may have, the end goal has to be to end youth vaping. And one of the clearest ways to do that is to stop the flavoring of e-cigarettes. This is, again, it's an epidemic nationally. I've seen it in my own district. Tom Suozzi is here with me today. In Nassau County, we've had a number of people just in the last few months rush to the emergency rooms on the verge of death because of vaping, both young people and adults. This is a serious public health epidemic. We have to keep in mind, though, that the opposition to this, they're strong. They have the resources out there. They don't have the numbers, but they have the resources. I know recently my daughter, who was in politics locally, she introduced legislation on this, and the next day, her Facebook, in fact, that afternoon, her Facebook page lit up with opposition. Mine did too. I was like the collateral damage to my daughter. But seriously, they are organized. We can't let that intimidate us, because we know that the great majority of the American people, if you talk to them, they're with us. So we can't allow those scare tactics to chase people away, to keep people away from doing what has to be done. This is not an issue of freedom or an issue of choice. It's an issue of life and death. So we have to stand together. I'm glad to be on this caucus, co-chairing the caucus with Raj and Dick Durbin and all the people, again, Republican, Democrat, all of us should stand together. This is a public health crisis. We have to confront it, we have to defeat it, and we have to make sure that the youth of our country are no longer being influenced and swayed, and in some cases being driven to death by sleazy tactics of the e-cigarette manufacturers. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. And next up is Congresswoman Diana DeGette of Colorado. Diana?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Roger. We're really facing a true epidemic in this country. The number of teens who are vaping is at an all-time high, and no state, unfortunately, has more teens using e-cigarettes than my home state of Colorado. According to the CDC, the number of high school students now using tobacco products went up 38% in the last year alone. About 1 in 4 high school students are now using tobacco products, and the vast majority of those are using e-cigarettes. Now, I haven't talked to one person who uses these vaping products who knows what they're inhaling or how it might affect their health. And the recent surge in the vaping-related illnesses shows that we are desperate for more federal regulation of these dangerous products. Congress simply cannot afford to sit back and watch as these companies keep operating as if nobody is paying attention. The vaping-related illnesses have short-term consequences for some older adults, but the doctors that I've talked to say that these consequences can be devastating for teenagers whose lungs are still developing. The lungs don't stop developing until they're 25 or 26 years old. And if a teen gets a vaping illness before their lungs fully develop, it might permanently inhibit their lung development and prevent them from ever having the capacity of an adult. That's why Congress has a responsibility to protect our public health, and it's really important that we do so. I've been working on this issue for years along with many of the people standing here, and it's frankly unfortunate that it takes so many people to get sick and even die across this country before we really pay the kind of attention that we should. We need to get these products out of the hands of our kids, and we need to do it now. That's why last spring I introduced legislation to ban the sale of flavored nicotine products. Flavors like bubblegum, Tutti Frutti, Gummy Bear have no place in the marketplace when they're marketed to kids. Data shows, you can clap for that. The data shows that 81% of teens who have used an e-cigarette started out by using a flavored product. The data also shows that 81.5% of the teens currently using e-cigarettes are using them because, quote, they have a flavor that I like. And somehow I don't think that flavor is nicotine. So if we're going to be serious about protecting our teens from these dangers, we've got to start by stopping the kid flavors of nicotine. Also, we have to raise the smoking age in this country. Studies have shown that nearly all adult smokers started before the age of 21. I'm also sponsoring legislation, which is bipartisan legislation in the House, to raise the nationwide smoking age for both traditional and e-cigarettes to 21. And I invite everybody here to make sure that you or your congresspeople are co-sponsoring it. If we can keep nicotine products out of the hands of our kids longer, we can decrease the chances of becoming addicted later in life. Finally, I want to say, as the chair of the Oversight Subcommittee of the Energy and Commerce Committee, which is the committee with jurisdiction over these issues, we're investigating what's causing the recent surge of vaping-related illnesses and also the overall health effects these are having. We're having our first major hearing on this issue next week. And I really want to thank Representative Krishnamoorthi and also Representative King for taking the lead on organizing this important new caucus, as well as the legislation and the hearings. We are going to be working tirelessly to make sure that we keep these products out of the hands of our young people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Diana. Next speaker is Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro of Connecticut. Rosa.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me give a shout out to the Ditch Jewel crowd here and the youth vaping. Thank you. You don't know how much we need your voices in this fight, and it is a fight. So I'm honored to be here with my colleagues, with Rosa Krishnamoorthi, Peter King, Diana DeGette, Chris Stewart, Tom Suozzi, Lauren Underwood, Angie Craig, others, because together what we are trying to do is to fight to defend the health and the well-being of our communities and our youngsters. In that fight, let me also acknowledge Matthew Myers and the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, Dr. Linda Young and the American Academy of Pediatrics, Meredith Berkman and Dorian Furman, and Parents Against Vaping e-Cigarettes. And I want to thank each of you, because you have worked tirelessly in your professional lives and you are making an impact. Your commitment has been and remains crucial to all of our efforts. And it's wonderful to know that we are together. It's Democrats, it's Republicans, it's the advocacy groups as we march forward. To Caleb Mintz, to Philip Furman, we appreciate being here. Please, please share your stories with us and with others. It's a bipartisan congressional caucus to end the youth vaping epidemic. And I want to just say to Congressman Krishnamoorthi, to Congressman King, and to Senator Durbin, your leadership on this issue is really a beacon of light for all of us. We are in the midst of a youth vaping epidemic. Let me just point out to you the cover today of Time magazine, The New American Addiction, how Juul hooked kids and ignited a public health crisis. That's exactly right. Today, 1 in 5 high school students use e-cigarettes in my home state. Vaping is the most common form of youth smoking used by Connecticut high school students. And to read about what they are inhaling with these devices, it is so scary. Last week, I held an event with Dr. Penina Weiss, the medical director for Pediatric Pulmonary Function Laboratory at Yale New Haven Children's Hospital. She ran through the chemicals. Ethylene glycol, which is used in antifreeze. Propylene glycol, which is used as a toner for laser pictures. Vitamin E oil, which is under investigation and implicated in the outbreak of lung illnesses. Fine particles and carcinogens, fruit flavorings to attract youth. And then nicotine, an addictive chemical in cigarettes. It hurts children's brain development. 1 Juul pod has as much nicotine as 1 pack of cigarettes. That's the cocktail. And now people are falling ill and they are dying. On a call earlier today, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention confirmed vaping-related lung illnesses have risen to 530 probable cases, 7 deaths in 38 states, and 1 U.S. territory. In Connecticut, 11 people have fallen ill. Enough is enough. I have the honor and really a blessing to chair the subcommittee that funds the Department of Health and Youth Services, and I have urged HHS and FDA to exercise their existing authority under the law to take vapes and e-cigarettes off the market. 2009, the Congress gave the Food and Drug Administration the authority to regulate all tobacco products, including e-cigarettes. People say that Congress isn't acted. We acted in 2009. We said, regulate, do your job, regulate. The Bipartisan Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act, TCA, gave the FDA the authority to regulate new tobacco products before they enter the market, and that includes e-cigarettes. However, the Department of Health and Human Services, the FDA, allowed dangerous products to come on the market by exempting e-cigarettes from a pre-market review. What is that? It's a process which would have required manufacturers to prove the safety of their products prior to their sale. The FDA made the express decision to skip this review in what they call, and I quote, enforcement discretion. And they allowed these devices to be sold. Their enforcement discretion has wound up making people ill and killing people. As a consequence, thousands of e-products on the market without any independent science-based assessment of their long-term health. Diana DeGette is here, Congresswoman DeGette. She spoke about energy and commerce. They will be doing a hearing on this issue. We in the Labor HHS Subcommittee of Appropriations are going to be holding a hearing as well. And why? Because I chair the subcommittee, and we're going forward. We're going forward. We can do this. The country is waiting for us to do this. And I am proud to stand alongside of my colleagues. And this is not a partisan issue. This is about our kids, all of our kids. It's about our grandkids. So together we stand, Republicans and Democrats, and we are going to pass a bill that gets these products off the market, that says no to the flavors, that looks at age 21, and we're going to move forward. So we need to mobilize, and we need everyone's help to do that. The health of our children and our communities is at stake. Thank you, Raj.
Thank you,
Thank
Rosa.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosa. Next up is Congressman Tom Suozzi of New York.
Thank you, Raj. First of all, let's hear it for Raja and Peter again and thank them for pulling this together. We're so grateful to them. Let's hear for the campaign for tobacco-free kids.
Yeah.
Let's hear for PAVE.
Yeah.
Let's hear for the kids that are here today. You know, smoking is the #1 cause of preventable death in the United States of America. And some of us have been fighting against this for years. Now, we've got a new problem that's being created under our very noses. We see this happening right in front of us right now. And the same arguments that were used against tobacco for so many years, oh, we don't know the science, yet we're not certain of the science, is trying to be used by the vaping industry right now. And look how many years it took us to fight back against tobacco. We can't let this happen. It's so obvious. It's such common sense. And I want to thank all of my congressional colleagues that are up here, Democrats and Republicans, as has been mentioned, and the advocates that are here for working together to bring this to people's reality so they know this is happening. So yesterday, I introduced a bill along with Peter King. It was co-sponsored right away by Raja, and we're so grateful to you, Raj. And Steve Cohen, I think, left already, and I'm sure I'm going to get my other colleagues, that is going to do some things that we think are essential. In addition to what the president says he's going to do, we want to ban flavored cigarettes permanently in legislation, not just requiring on the administration to do it. But new to what anybody's been talking about before is we want to raise the federal tax, not only on cigarettes from $1 to $3, but also put us the same tax on vaping products as well for an equivalent $3 tax. Why? Because we see in the United States of America that those states that have raised their taxes on cigarettes have seen a lower incidence of people smoking and a lower incidence of cancer. We saw this in New York when Mike Bloomberg was the mayor of New York and the governor at the time, and I was the county executive of Nassau County. We saw these dramatic increases in the cost of cigarettes and the correlation to the direct, dramatic decrease in actual smoking. As a matter of fact, Connecticut and New York have the highest taxes in the country on cigarettes. And it works. We know it works. So we need to do that for vaping products as well because they're the same type of dangerous product. And we can't let this become the problem that smoking became in America that took decades to fight against and finally stop from growing in this country. And we still have more work to do with tobacco, but we have to stop this in its tracks. So let's ban flavored e-cigarettes. Let's raise the cost of using e-cigarettes. And let's put more money into the CDC to actually help people with cessation of smoking and vaping. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom. And next up is Congressman Chris Stewart of Utah.
I have what I refer to as my longer, shorter rule, and that is the longer the line of Congress people who speak before you, the shorter you should be. So I'm going to do this in plus or minus 1 second from a minute. Again, Raja, thank you. Peter, thank you. To the youth behind us who have the courage to stand here with us against, by the way, the opposition of some of their friends, the opposition against some of their peers. And it's taken some courage, and it's very clear that these young people behind us have very bright futures in the character that they have demonstrated here. I remember being in an appropriations markup and holding up a Slurpee. And it looked just like any Slurpee. It had the lid and everything else in it, and you would have thought, yep, that's a Slurpee. And I open it up, and inside, of course, is a vaping cartridge. And there aren't very many 45-year-old truckers who are pulling into 7-Eleven and saying, give me one of those Slurpee vapes. This is very, very clearly marketing towards our children, which is the point of why we're here today. Some of you may know I represent the state of Utah. Because of our predominant religion there, normally we have less incidences of youth who are smoking and drinking. Now, it's not perfect, obviously, but it's generally lower than it is nationally. We have about almost 20%. 20% now of our young people are vaping. Wow. A little less than nationally, but still a remarkable number. And think of how Raja started out here. 28% nationally, that's nearly a third. That's nearly 1 out of 3 people. You know, I grew up in an era where we went through this transition where smoking was really considered uncool. We took it out of our movies. You didn't see sports figures smoking. It changed the advertising. And we've lost all of that with this campaign towards addicting our children. And where it no longer is considered uncool to go out to the point when you're in high school and smoke, it's kind of considered edgy and hip to pull out your vape and to start using that in front of your friends. We've got to change that. That's what we're about here today. I'll just mention one other thing. I met with one of the directors of the DA in my state, and I was shocked at the things they're finding in these illicit cartridges that kids are buying out on the street. The amount of THC that they're packing into these things, some of the poisons, and frankly, things that we have no idea what's in them. And once again, they're being targeted to our kids. So thank you for being here. Thank you for showing the support. Thanks all of those who are participating. Raj and Peter, bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Good job. Thank you, Chris. Next person is Matthew Myers, the president of the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. Matthew?
Mr. President.
Thank you. It is an honor and privilege to be here today. We face a real public health crisis that is worse than we thought and getting worse every day. There is an urgent need, not for more talk, but for real action. And that's why we're thrilled to be here to support the creation of a bipartisan, bicameral caucus to directly address these issues. You know, the kids who are using e-cigarettes aren't Democratic kids or Republican kids. They don't know the difference. They're all of America's kids. We have had a lot of talk. What we need is real action. This caucus gives us the opportunity to do it. We need to raise the age to 21, but we need to understand that flavored e-cigarettes have fueled this epidemic. This is straight out of the tobacco industry's old playbook. Introduce sweet flavors that appeal to kids. Lace it with massive levels of nicotine. Get them on social media using the exact images the tobacco industry did 40 years ago. And when the crisis hits, hire lobbyists to prevent government to act. This caucus is the antidote to that action. Our hope and our pledge to you is that this will result in the movement of legislation to increase the age, ban all flavors, and if we don't ban mint and menthol, we're just kidding ourselves. 64% of all kids who use e-cigarettes use mint and menthol e-cigarettes. The tobacco industry and Juul know it. It's why they're trying to exempt it. There is no evidence that those products actually help adult smokers quit, and if they have the evidence, they ought to present it to FDA. They haven't done it because that's not who their target audience really is. I want to thank Congressman Krishnamoorthi, Congressman King, Senator Durbin. This is exactly the kind of caucus that we need. Everybody should be working together. If there is a member of Congress who's prepared to raise their hand and say, I'm voting against banning the flavors that have fueled the e-cigarette epidemic, I want them to stand before the moms and dads in their district and explain why that's the case. I don't think it will happen, but what we have to do is ensure that those votes take place and take place soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Myers. Next up is Dr. Linda Young of the American Academy of Pediatrics.
Thank you. So good afternoon. As you've heard, my name's Dr. Linda Young, and I'm here today representing the 67,000 pediatrician members of the American Academy of Pediatrics, and I'm proud to represent them today. I'm a pediatrician from Worcester, Massachusetts. I also want to thank Representative Krishnamoorthi, King, and Senator Durbin for creating this caucus to end this youth vaping epidemic. So without a doubt, you have heard many people before me say that we are facing a public health epidemic, which we definitely are. The epidemic of vaping has reached epidemic proportions. You have mentioned the statistic about 530 cases so far of severe lung illness and 7 deaths that go along with that. These products are dangerous. They are highly addictive and pose an immediate threat to children's health. As a pediatrician, I try to do everything possible to ensure that children can grow up healthy, and I'm seriously concerned that these products are addicting a new generation to nicotine. And the numbers are alarming, as you have heard. 5 million children are using e-cigarettes. The administration's decision to remove flavored e-cigarettes from the market is a very welcome step, and the FDA really, we would love them to follow through without delay. We now need Congress to help us lead the way. We cannot miss this opportunity to do what's right for children. E-cigarettes are marketed as a healthier alternative to traditional smoking. They come in flavors that appeal to children. We've already heard some: cotton candy, gummy bears, Captain Crunch. And they're even designed to look like flash drives, pens, and watches. And children often think that these products are harmless, but they are far from it. So when I see adolescents in clinic, I ask them if they smoke, and they say, oh no, that's bad for you. Then I ask them if they vape, and they go, well, yeah, that's just water vapor. That's just steam. They have no clue what they are inhaling into their bodies. So Juul and similar products are designed to deliver high levels of nicotine to users quickly, so addiction can happen fast. One Juul pod, as you heard, contains as enough nicotine as 20 cigarettes or one pack. Pediatricians have seen the harmful toll of vaping in our own teenage patients, ranging from wheezing, coughing, exacerbation of asthma, compromised lung function has already been mentioned, and most recently to seizures, respiratory distress, and death. We also know from a number of studies about the harmful effects of nicotine on the developing adolescent brain. The AAP has long been sounding the alarm on the dangers of e-cigarettes to children's health. Now we need our federal leaders to take bold action to keep these products out of children's hands. We must eliminate child-friendly flavors, including mint and menthol, from tobacco products. Congress has the power to do this once and for all and pass this legislation. Flavored products are designed to attract kids, plain and simple. There is no place for these products on the market. Pediatricians look forward to working with the members of this caucus to advance policies that will protect children from tobacco products and reverse this youth vaping crisis. Tackling this epidemic is going to require swift and decisive action, and we have no time to waste. The future of children's health depends on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, folks, we are down to our last two pairs of speakers. First is Meredith Berkman and Dorian Furman. They're the parents and co-founders of Parents Against Vaping e-cigarettes. Meredith and Dorian?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are so thrilled and proud and honored to be standing here today with members of Congress who have put aside any thought of partisan politics to protect our kids from the youth vaping epidemic of flavored e-cigarettes. As you've heard, all of the numbers, the 5 million kids who are using these products, we represent the human face and the toll that this epidemic has taken on millions of American families, and it continues. We hear from parents every single day through social media or calling us or reaching out on our website who are desperate because they need information, they need resources. Sometimes they just need someone to talk to. Their kids have changed, their kids are sick, and of course now maybe their kids are in the hospital with a mystery lung illness. The mystery lung illness is terrifying, but it is really a symptom of the underlying issue, which is that FDA allowed these flavored e-cigarettes to remain on the market without pre-market review. And so we really have absolutely no idea, because of the proprietary flavors, what our children have been sucking deep into their lungs for a very long time, for years now. And we are grateful and for the president's promise to take these flavors off the market, and we will be even more grateful if that promise is fulfilled quickly, completely, and for good. So we very much want to thank Congressmember Krishnamoorthi and Congressmember King and Senator Durbin and all of your colleagues who are putting protecting our kids over politics. And I guess we just want to say that we will not allow our children to be used as human guinea pigs. And that's why those flavors must come off the market now.
Right, so you've heard the figures, you've heard that vaping affects the developing brain, but what you don't know is the effect that nicotine addiction, vaping addiction takes on families, the toll it takes on families. It changes a personality of a child, of a growing child. It leads to great outbursts of anger. It leads to depression. It leads to conflict within a family. And you hear that kids are drawn in by the flavors, which is true. 90%, 95% of kids who begin to vape use flavors, and I've got to say mint and menthol are flavors. They are the predominant flavor that kids are using today. 75% of Juul sales are mint, 8% are menthol, but it's really mint and menthol that are the huge draw for kids. And we get emails, as Meredith said, every day from kids and families, especially families who don't have any resources because there are no cessation techniques, there are no addiction programs for kids who are addicted to nicotine. And this Juul, this e-cigarette addiction is very different than a combustible cigarette addiction. And we have to use the resources of the government, first of all, to slow down and stop this epidemic, and then to treat the kids and the families of the children who are already addicted.
I want to say one last thing. Again, you know, we represent a movement. We started this group just a year ago, 3 moms who were concerned about the youth vaping epidemic. And the real motivator, our kids can tell you quickly, a Juul rep came into our kids' school without the knowledge of the school through an outside anti-addiction group, all of which we testified to at the hearings that Representative Krishnamoorthi ran. And so, you know, we represent a movement, an army of motivated momvocates around the country who will partner with these leaders who are willing to help us protect our kids. A society that does not protect its kids from a public health epidemic, the one that we're facing, is not a society that has hope for the future. And we know that with leaders like these who are thinking about putting aside any political differences to fight to protect our kids from this public health epidemic, we will have hope for the future. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Meredith and Dorian. And finally, we're going to have a couple teens that were actually impacted by the vaping epidemic, namely Caleb Mintz and Philip Furman. Caleb and Philip?
I am so grateful to all the members of Congress here today willing to put aside politics and partisan issues to protect our generation from Juul and other flavored vapes. As I testified in Congress this summer, over a year ago, a Juul representative came into my school and told me and my friends that the Juul was quote-unquote totally safe. I'm grateful to the administration for promising to ban the flavors that have hooked so many of my peers, and although my generation may be the generation of damage control, we must work together to protect teens like us and younger children from the dangers of vaping and e-cigarettes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job. Thank you so much.
First, I just want to thank everyone here who is trying to keep these devices out of the hands of me and my friends. I started juuling with the mint pod, and I liked it because it felt cool in my throat. And every one of my friends who still juuls, I know, started with a flavor and still uses a flavor. This has become the social norm. Some of my friends are now trying to quit because of the new data that has come out, but it is honestly just too hard to do without help. Something has to be done, and this caucus, I think, is the place where it's going to get done. Thank you.
Good job. Thank you. Good job. Good job. Well done. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Okay, thank you, everybody, for coming. Brian, are we going to take questions? Okay, we'll take a couple questions. We're done? Okay, we're good. Okay, take care, guys.
They called votes.
Oh, they called votes. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for coming all the way
Thank
down.
you so much. Can I take a picture?
Yes, 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 absolutely.
And I had to get my dinner with Aaron last night. I want to tell you about that. Yeah.
Caleb, can you get in the picture?
Thank you.
Thanks again for coming. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Sorry.
Can I play a second?
Philip met Katie May and Aaron. They came over to our house this summer. Picture.
Yeah, Luke, you want to get in the picture?
Yeah, come on.
What were you doing with that microphone?
I hear you're grabbing your grandson and going back home.
A lot of friction. There you go. I'm gonna have to be part of that song. Thanks. Clamp.